back, Surfcast Podcast. Today we are with Cape Cod Canal fishing expert, Joe Paiva. Joe, I'm not sure if you remember this or not, but we met right before the pandemic hit at the Marlboro Fly Fishing Show. And you made a very serious impression on me that has held through all the way until this day. And for those listening to the podcast, they might find it a little surprising, who knows personally, Toby and I personally, that we're doing a Cape Cod Canal discussion so early on in our podcast, since that's something that we don't really do. And Toby and I have been known to say a thing or two about fishing at the canal. So it's interesting that we are doing this so early on, but you have stuck in my mind because the thing that Toby and I also really like is to bust myths and to call out untruths. And you made such an impression on me at the fly fishing show of all places when you were talking about jigging at night in the canal. I mean, it was blowing my mind, the things you were telling me about, the numbers you do, how you approach it, and you weren't getting into details, but it was one of those moments where I was like, this is someone I really want to talk to. This is someone I wish I could have a much longer conversation with, and I hope I get to one day. And that's the beautiful thing about having a podcast is you get to have these longer conversations. So that was the first time I've ever interacted with you. And when we were talking about what do we want to do for this next interview, it was one of the first things in my mind because I was like, I want to talk to Joe. I want to talk about the canal. I want to talk about the sort has become the underground canal, and I want to talk to Joe. So that's where I first ran into you. So thank you so much for joining us, and I'm really looking forward to tonight. And with that very long-winded introduction, Toby, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Yeah, I'll keep mine a little shorter. Joe, you'll probably remember this too, to a degree, but not this backside of it. The first time I got to know you or heard of you was back in the Go Tight days.
Yeah, I certainly remember.
And
it was fun.
If I'm going to be completely honest, it's because you drove me nuts. And I was talking with Dave, who the F are these guys, Malden Mojo? What is this? You're giving Jay and I a run for our money, and we greatly appreciated the competition as everybody gave us in that tournament, but you stood out right away. And I talked to Dave, and he's like, he pretty quickly was like, give these dudes a shot. Like they know their stuff. They're legit. They're good guys. And, obviously I take Dave's word pretty seriously. So I honed back my impression, and I was not disappointed. When I actually finally got to talk to you, I was impressed. I took back all the negative things I was thinking.
Thank you. That's very kind of both of you. And, I don't need to tell you that. I have the utmost respect. I don't know Jerry as well as I know you, because we competed a lot, not just on a Gold Tide as partners, you and Jay and me and Mike, but also at the car hunt, which was individual. Yep. And by the way, I will make it public. I never beat Toby. He really, on the car hunt, he got me good every year. I was always there, second, third. You know what? Between me, you, and Jay, we were always the top three there, like competing. And to be honest with you, there's different ways to see this. So you either hate or respect. And I'm on the side of respecting and appreciating. You never heard nobody say, "Oh, Joe told me something about you or bad about you." No, it's the other way, because you guys pushed me to another level.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. So I took that as a challenge for me. He said, "I really want to beat those guys. I really want to be better than them." It was extremely hard. Well, you guys won month of October there. Remember, you guys will. 50, like, this is not even fair. But again, it was a great experience. I think we have a great concept there. If you think about it, as you brought Gold Tide, back then a lot of people was making fun of us that will catch and release guys. This is before the hype. This is, people will look at us, oh, look at those guys, and today, a lot of people, for the wrong reason, doing the right thing. That's what matters. But still, the same ones that will, talk a lot about us and this and that are the superheroes today of catch and release. But again, I don't care about what makes them do the right thing. As long as they're doing the right thing, I'm happy with it.
Yeah. I know.
As a pioneer, changing that new cycle of catch and release. You
It
know,
sort of feels like we need to have a resurrection of a tournament, maybe a Surfcast podcast tournament. Is this is what I'm feeling right now a bit.
I agree. I
So
I've
agree. Yeah.
I've thought maybe we'll bug Dave. He can run it for us. How
yeah,
about
yeah,
that?
yeah, 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 exactly. So
Oh.
so
Well, Joe, I appreciate the kind words. Believe me, it's mutual. So I appreciate you saying all
And you
that.
really drove me crazy. Trust me.
Excellent.
When the numbers are ready to become public, so I don't know what's your numbers, and I'm killing myself, fishing night and night after night, and oh God, and then sometimes you show up 50-50. I remember that specific week we were throwing, and that week was a playoffs week. We were throwing 45, 46-inch bass on the water because we didn't need those measurements. That's how crazy it was. And you
Mhm.
guys did something crazy like 50, 50, 50, 49, and then the tiebreaker 49, like insane, insane, insane.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember our cutoff was
You remember
anything under
that?
48 inches wasn't worth.
No,
It wasn't an upgrade. We'll call it that because we're
no,
still
no,
worse
it
than it. But
wasn't
yeah, it wasn't an
exactly.
upgrade.
We were putting like 44, 45 inches on the water, on the water. That specific week, I was like amazing, amazing competition.
Yeah.
I would never do it again. Because it took a lot of you know how it is.
yes,
Yeah.
I see myself on a different stage of life. I don't know if it's age. I don't know what it is. Even though I'm not old, but I don't feel the. I don't think I'm a junkie anymore for the dopamine and adrenaline as I was.
Yeah.
And I would never do that again. To be honest with you, crazy nights. Night after night.
Yeah.
that's fine.
Crazy schedule. No,
That's
no,
fine.
not again.
Well, speaking of nights, let's jump into the specifics of the topic tonight. Because honestly, I mean, I could spend most of the night just talking, reminiscing about those go tight days and all that, which was it was
Fun,
it
fun.
was so much fun and but so much work. But another subject for another day. So what we're going to talk about specifically tonight, we alluded to, is fishing the Cape Cod Canal,
Mhm.
and we're going to really hammer it down for nighttime. We're going to talk exclusively, for the most part, on nighttime fishing in the canal. So let's start off with the first simple, most basic question to get things going, Joe. Nighttime fishing the canal. In
Mhm.
its simplest form, how is it different, other than there's no sun above your head, from fishing the canal in the daytime?
I think it's pretty much like the surf. I'm sure anybody that goes for trophy fish, they barely fish at daytime. Those fish are opportunistic. They approach the shores and the bays more at nighttime, especially when you have the new moons or even the full moons, depending where, especially if you're talking about inlets or even the Cape Cod Canal. The bigger the current, the moon phases really plays a role on that. And the Cape Cod Canal is no different. But like I always like to say and separate, there's two ways to fish. You either do it for the sport or you either do it for trophy fish. And it's two completely different things. One, it's the fun part about it. Not saying for trophy fish, it's not fun, but there's a lot of sacrifices involved. And I think that's what people don't realize. One thing, you go there, you throw this, throw that. It doesn't matter. You catch, you have fun. And one other thing, you do it consistently. But to do that, there's a lot of sacrifices. You got to do it. You guys fish too. You guys know this family. There's our professional lives. There's a lot of things involved that we got, to put everything together and be responsible, be still a good father, a good husband, a good son, a good friend. And it's so hard to put everything together. And sometimes we do a lot of mistakes along the way. But with that said, yeah, night fishing, same thing as the surf, even though Cape Cod Canal is still surf, but the classic surf, I should say, is the same thing. You have more opportunities at nighttime for sure.
so right off the bat, you get to a very interesting question, and I think perspective is really important. You're saying trophy fish at night. A lot of the guys fishing during the day call those 25, 28, 30-pound fish trophy size fish. But I think all of us here have a different perspective. But I want to hear what your perspective is. What is a trophy fish? What are you looking for at night in the canal?
The way I see it, 45 pounds up, I consider a trophy
That's
fish.
right.
I mean, some people, you could say 43, 44, 45. I would not argue. Everybody has their own idea and concept what a trophy fish is. But I'll see it that way. I don't consider a 44 to 45 inch, talking about inches now, bass a trophy fish. I consider it a very nice bass. but not trophy fish. Trophy fish, it's got to be at least 47 up. 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, which is extremely rare. Those are trophy fish, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's a big thing. So even though when we're seeing those big, and they're nice fish for sure, crashing on bait, you still think your best shot at a fish that's of trophy class is at night, even when that's happening.
100%. I'm not saying you cannot catch them at daytime, but at daytime you have everything. So if you're talking about the Cape Cod Canal, at daytime you have all those seams, a lot of bait, mag chasing, then you might have squid, there's so many things going on that it's hard to target a pocket or hard to target, if you're going to compare throwing a bait versus a bucktail, when you know the structure, and you know the pocket, the behind the boulder you're trying to target, it's completely different. When you have thousands of bass, a huge school of all in the mix, how are you going to target trophy fish? You just can't. It's more lottery, than anything else. Don't get me wrong, it's fun. I do it. Sometimes I go there on the breaking tides, but I went years and years and years fishing that nobody would know my face. At daytime, first light, I will be out of there. First light, I'm out. Nobody will see me. And I spent doing that for years. And Joe, but hey, the bite's going to be good. I'm sure it will be, but I will encounter people on the parking lot. What are you doing? Leaving? I said, yeah, well, I'm leaving. So people don't get it. It's a different, it's a different sport. What we're doing there. Not now. With that said, I don't do this now anymore. I might pick and choose, some trips doing that, but again, my stage of life right now is not the same.
So when you are fishing at night, because you already kind of brought this up too, when you're fishing at night, I'm assuming it's different than during the day. You use these words, so I'm going to use them too. In the real surf, in the open surf, we'll say that. The open surf. Toby and I, we tend to pick spots and pick a pattern, and we fish a spot in a certain way. A lot of guys who fish in the canal during the day, they're running and gunning. They're looking for bait. They're running from spot to spot. They're not really focused on what the water's doing. Are you fishing the canal the way we fish the open surf, in that you spend a certain amount of time at a spot in the canal for tide stage, current, direction, etc.? Is that what you do?
Definitely. Without going into specification of spots, I'm a believer. Listen, I go back to what I said. If I'm gonna tell you I never went on a bike and chased top water, I'm lying. I've done it because it's fun. But a lot of the times, 90% of the times, that's especially when I was competing tournaments, not just the gold tide. I did quite a few, the mass bass tournaments, quite a few local tournaments. So I will never do that because that's not how I'm going to get into big bass. So yes, I really try to master a certain spot, master the structure. And when I say master, there's a lot of things, to master a structure. I'll give you an example. If you're casting 100 yards, you have a certain way at the bottom. If you're casting 110 yards, that changes completely. If you cast 120, there we go. You have another boulder, you have another this, another that. So that's why I say, you have to have really good at what you're doing, or become good at what you're doing, and really know a spot. That's very important. It doesn't matter if you're casting on the beginning of the night 130 yards to reach a certain boulder, a certain pocket, and then on the end of the night you're casting 100 yards. That's a completely different structure.
That's really cool.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So you gotta be on a way that you know what you're doing. You find that sweet spot. Okay, I can do this for 6 hours, 100 yards, and do your adjustments with angles, with current, with everything that you have to do to reach that X boulder or X spot.
It's funny, as you're going through this, I had a perception, because I fished the canal a handful of times. I could maybe cover it on two hands or maybe a third hand. The number of times I've actually fished the canal, so I've nowhere near the experience you've got. And I'm really appreciating the comparisons of how you're approaching the nighttime canal to how I and a lot of the guys that I talk with that take the open surf, as we're calling it, to the seriousness that we sort of do, and you're applying to the night canal fishing.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yes.
Once you You know what? I'm pretty sure, once you go to your spots, you're targeting a structure. There's that boulder, there's that thing. When we have this kind of current, the fish usually swirls there or does that
Mhm.
That's right.
to find that pocket. They leave there, they go more down the drift to when the end of the tail of the tide. So there's different specifications of spots, but the concept really doesn't change. It
Mm.
really doesn't.
So
If you're talking structure, there's nothing out there that has more structure than the Cape Cod
that's
Canal.
right. Yeah, that's true.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and the hardest thing is how are you going to target certain pockets and at 50 feet down, at
Yeah.
45 feet down, with 5 knots current. And you need that current, by the way, because if you don't have that current, the bass not going to find those pockets to rest and
Mhm.
ambush bait. So if you don't have current, you don't have those pockets with big bass holding.
Because they can kind of just go where they
Go
want.
where they
Can go
want.
away anywhere. They don't need to rest.
Yeah.
So when sometimes I have spots that I know I'm gonna take one bass out of there. That's it, and
Mm.
that's enough for me. But that one I know it's gonna be a good one. But again, there's nights you cannot do it. But I still, I might have a couple people throwing, let's say, plastics, for example. And this happened. I tell you a quick story and actually, well, most of the people were there on a very popular spot, was Jersey, New York guys. And they saw me there. And I hear people talking, the whispers, oh, well, it's Paiva, and whatever. And I didn't bother with that. So they catching, 20 pounder after 20 pounder, 20 pounder after 20 pounder. Nice fish. They're all throwing plastics, and I'm the only one on the blacktail. I'm throwing blacktail. I'm throwing blacktail. They have 20, 30 fish, a bass each one.
Hmm.
I caught a 51 incher. Really, I told the guys, hey, stop, nobody casts. So boom, boom, everybody. I put on the water. Say, okay, guys, have a good night. So, that's why I have a lot of haters, and a lot of people that respect me. But my point is, it's not because I'm better than them. It's because I'm doing the right thing and I'm disciplined.
Mm.
The hardest thing as an angler to you to do is when you see someone, oh, that guy's using a white needle. Well, forget about the color, forget about just the plug itself. That guy's doing a needle or doing a bottle or doing a whatever. If he's catching bass on it, so it's really hard to get you to have the discipline to keep doing what you believe, what you work hard, what you study, and what you're doing is the right thing. It's very hard.
Mhm.
It's not easy. You got
That's
to be very disciplined.
that's right.
That's the things I learned along the years. I don't care what they're doing. I don't care if they're catching 20 pounders. I just don't. I gonna remain with I know and what I want to target.
Mhm.
Of
So
course, this is to trophy bass fish. If I
right.
was not competing and want to have fun, I may be doing the same. So no hate for the who does more like the fun fishing,
Mhm.
but don't expect you to fish for fun and be consistent catching big bass. It's not gonna happen.
So when the daytime fishing is good like that, which it is when it's
It
crazy
is, yeah,
like that,
definitely. Yeah.
does that correspond to good nighttime fishing? Or
And
do
not
you not
exactly.
really pay attention to it and you're more focused on spot tide, blah blah blah, current, etc.?
It, it, you could have a pattern that nighttime could be, and this I will not go like to full details, but there's a certain hour that at nighttime, in a specific tide that morning's gonna be great. You already know. It's going to be great. But if it happens a little bit earlier on the night, it's not going to be great. There's definitely a pattern there that without the years, we look at patterns. Let's put it this way: if those bass come in early on the night, they'll be out on the bay, and a lot of the times they don't make it back. Let's put it to you on a
Okay,
simple way,
got
so
it.
people understand.
Yeah.
So if you are more towards the end of the night, and you have, let's say, the tail of the tide, good action, good bass holding. So on first light and more, towards the morning, those bass are still there, and they will go to the seams, the close seam, this first seam that already see a lot of people throwing, stick shads and whatever,
Mhm.
swing plastics. And, it's fun. I mean, it's fun. I had a lot of fun doing that. It's really fun.
So when you are focused on these spots that hold a fish or two, you just mentioned in passing, oh, you got to be willing to stand there and fish for 6 hours. Do you focus on a spot like that for hours? Do you hit some that are closer or further away? Do you try something for a little while and then move to a different and then come back? Do you do any of that?
Well, I'm stubborn. I stick with one spot, and I really,
Nice.
I believe, I believe at certain point, if big bass comes in, they're gonna hold an ambush, and that's pretty much what it is. So if I know I have decent structure, I'm able uh, to target, because the problem really is, I will say this to you. I'm only good at the Cape Cod Canal, probably four spots. And people say, only four? Yeah, I only can master four spots, because
Yeah.
it will take you 4 or 5 years at least 4 or 5 years to master a spot. When I say master a spot, meaning you have to anticipate where your bobtail is. If you have a sudden drop of 5 feet on a boulder, if you felt the drop and you're releasing line, you're already too late.
Mm.
So you got to really know exactly where you are and be 1 second ahead of what's going to happen. Uh, I'm not saying that people that don't do that, they will not catch a big fish, but to me, again, that's more lottery, because especially those pumping the jig up and down in the water. That's in my opinion, again, I know a lot of people's gonna hate on that, what I'm gonna say, but that's crazy to me. That makes no sense, because what do you do when you're jumping out the structure? Eventually, if you're lucky enough, that thing, when it goes down, drops exactly on the spot. There you go, God bless you. But again, that's luck, not
Yeah.
skill.
That's right.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, I was never the I always call it the gorilla jigging like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, makes no
I didn't
sense.
like it. The couple times I tried it and saw guys, I was like, this is not for me.
If I do jigging, you will say, Joe, what are you doing? You bait fishing? I call dead stick jigging.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah. That's right.
That that's I'm picturing similar to how I fish like this, the outflow, smaller, super tiny versions of what you have in the canal, but less imparted action. It's more just
Yeah,
swinging
the same,
through the
especially for
structure.
big bass. They love
Yeah.
that. That you drift really low bottom there, right there. They will hit it. The more
hmm
you do it, you're taken out of the strike zone.
Yeah. That's right.
Bass are not there. Just think about it. And that applies more to the Cape Cod Canal. You have 4 knots current, 5 knots current, even sometimes even more than that. And then you think you're gonna there's a 50 pounder holding 6 feet, fighting the current. There's just swimming. I mean, that makes no sense. I mean, just you don't need to know much about to understand that.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
That's right.
You,
That's exactly
you
right.
know?
You mentioned something very important a couple of times that I want to make sure that we focus on for a little bit here. Bucktail. Bucktail, bucktail, bucktail. You didn't say savage gear. You didn't say soft plastic and a jig head. You said bucktail.
Back to you.
You said bucktail. Now, are you primarily using bucktails? How heavily are you leaning on bucktails versus something else? Like, are
I
you
mean,
fishing them
now, well,
always? Like, what's your preference?
Uh, now, it's almost like a 50-50, because, I like the fun. I like, but if you talk, if we're gonna focus big bass, big fish, trophy fish,
Yeah, at night.
uh, at nighttime, 99% blacktail.
Mm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
I mean, it's not even close. 99% blacktail.
yeah, and I feel like that's something that's dying, which is so
Yeah.
unfortunate
Yeah,
because
it is.
yeah, it
It
is,
is.
right? I mean, it's like that used to be what everybody did.
I
And
mean, I see
then
people now at nighttime throwing magic streamers. I'm like, what are you doing? It's like, are you okay? It's like,
exactly. So that's amazing. So I have so many questions about the bucktail, but before I forget, because you just mentioned it, you were talking about the differences in distances you were casting 100, 110, 120, 80 yards, whatever it is. And you were
whatever it
talking
is.
about the angle. So changing the angle of the current and the way the angle of the bucktail comes into the zone. Are you sticking with a couple of different weights of bucktail and changing how far up or where you're casting, or are you changing bucktails a lot, like changing weights a
Oh
lot?
God, it's way more than that. I will tell you
Okay.
a little bit. So let's say a 5 ounces bucktail. Just a 5 ounces bucktail, I have tied in so many different ways, more air, medium, and barely air, just
Mm.
to change the sinking ratio within 5 ounces bucktail. Never mind 4.5, 5.5, and
Nice.
Mm.
you have to, because you know you it happens on a surf too. You know when you're doing something right and then the current changes, the tide rises, and you're not, oh, I'm not in a zone anymore.
Hmm.
So imagine when you have a Cape Cod Canal that it's 50 feet down. It's really hard to keep you targeting that specific ledge, specific boulder. So if you don't have that ability I mean, countless times I will cut a bucktail, the hair of the bucktail.
Oh, trim it on the fly.
Even the same bucktail I'm using, I say, okay, I'm nailing in this bucktail. So the current goes from 5.5 to 5, and I cut a little bit here. And the current goes from 5 to 4.7 knots, and I cut a little bit more than here. So just to be able to use the same bucktail and keep I'm in a zone. I'm not losing it.
Hmm.
That is so amazing, and I feel like more guys need to hear this who are fishing the canal, because you're talking about 40, 50 feet deep and a 5-knot tide, and you're not swapping out bucktails, you're trimming hair. And I think that really is a great metaphor for fishing at night in the canal. And what I've heard you say, it really is that detailed and specific. It's not throwing a pencil popper or a magic swimmer or breaking fish. You are taking apart every inch of that bottom to get that one 50-inch fish or 51-inch
Exactly.
fish.
You know,
It's
you
a,
take a trophy fish. You know, I take a 46, 47, 48, 49. I consider those great fish
yeah.
for sure. But of course, the goal is to catch that big bass. The
Hmm.
experience of you reeling a 50, a 50 pounder, 52, 53 pounders, 100 yards out, plus whatever the bass takes at 50
Brutal.
feet down. It's a different experience.
Yeah, that has to be the experience. That has to be
Yeah,
an
yeah, and
amazing experience.
adrenaline, it's addictive. It's really addictive.
So what about
And again, I don't blame what people do it for fun. Everybody has their own thing. Makes sense to you, but to me, what kept me going back was thinking about those big bass
yeah,
and the
for
feeling that I
real.
have when I have them on a line, and I don't like to be there casting lead all night, but the reward of it, it
Hmm.
was worth,
Now
if that makes
what about trailers on the bucktails?
Yeah.
zero, never.
Yeah, see, now you told me that, and it has stuck with me
Nobody
forever.
believes it. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean that has stayed in my mind for 4 years now. It's been almost 4 years. It's been over 4 years actually, where you said that you're like, nope, nope. I've taken all of my really big fish on bucktails, no trailer, and I was like, because nobody does that anymore. I mean,
Not,
that's
not
what
just
everyone used to
me,
do, but nobody does that anymore.
Jerry, but not just me. This is not a thing. Oh, this is you. No,
That's right.
definitely. You will see all the the very good Cape Cod Canal jiggers. I don't want to mention names, but there's quite a few out there that I have the utmost respect. None of them use trailers. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, that's just wild. I mean,
All the
I
Sharpies, all the best of the best there, and I know them all. None of them uses.
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Well, I haven't heard anyone talk about that, so hopefully they won't come after you for putting that on the podcast here today. But I like that little tidbit.
Yeah, I think
No,
it's really important.
You got to
that
remember, so it goes back to cutting gear or doing whatever in a bucktail. When
Yeah.
you have a trailer, you're definitely changing the sinking ratio and the way that the water can swirl the bucktail in the wrong direction because you have drag in there. So it really gonna hurt you. It's not gonna do nothing because you're not so on the surf, for example, you put a trailer. You're more swimming, a bucktail, not really swimming, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
You have to have a little bit of action. On the Cape Cod Canal, the action, you cannot compromise action. You have to have the spot, the exact target.
hmm
And the action is not, you're not actually swinging the bucktail. You're just making sure the bucktail really stays there on bottom. You anticipate those pockets and drop it right there so the big bass takes it.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part, and to be able to do that, you gotta spend a lot of nights there. You gotta anticipate. You gotta know the okay, a bump, oh, a drop. You gotta know everything before. If I'm teaching someone there, like a good friend of mine, I'm next to it, and I've helped quite a few people. Okay, dump now. Let's go. No, do it now. Do it. So you gotta be 1 second ahead of the game. And if you do it too late, you're gonna hang on the bottom, and
hmm
you're gonna be frustrated and say this thing sucks, and they want to fish bucktails. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's
So
crazy.
That's why
you're
it's a little, nobody does it because of that. They lose a lot and whatever.
so you're putting your bucktail down there, no trailer,
No trouble.
varying amounts, small amount of hair, is sort of a question and almost an observation I'm picking up here. First, I have a question: is the head of your bucktail painted, like the lead part? Or is it just raw?
All right, I pour my
That's
own
so
backtails.
badass. That's
So
badass.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. Some I will part of codes. I wouldn't
yeah.
have two colors or backtails without going into details. But one more on the darker side, one more on the light side. Which is in the surf the same concept.
Hmm.
And sometimes I particle, but guess what? A bucktail, even if you particle bouncing those rocks after 4 or 5 trips, it's pure lead and
Yeah.
pure lead already.
That's
So
right.
it doesn't really matter.
I mean,
So
this is almost like the way I'm thinking it through. The more as you're telling me this, and I mean, I could be wrong. It's almost like you are like the concept of fly fishing. You have a hook and a little bit of basically the bucktail, and that's really all the fish is seeing. You're working on that quick reactionary strike out of them that they have less than a split second to think that
exactly.
might be food, hit it, and really all they're seeing is no more than a fly. I mean,
100%. And that's why it's so important to keep those the bucktail with anticipation on a drop. Imagine a ledge that you have. So that bass is right there behind the ledge. When the bucktail appears there at the right time, and the anticipation of the drop, that bass is only going to react.
mhm,
She's not going to see, oh, okay, this says trailer, doesn't have trailer. This thing is
yeah,
red, blue. She's going to react and take it.
not gonna think
That's
it.
how it is. That's why
Yeah.
the pinpoint where you put a blacktail, mastering that, it's really the art behind it.
Mm.
And again, but with that comes a lot of sacrifices. And anybody could be, I know quite a few people that are good, but anybody out there that won't go into this, everybody can do it as long as you are willing to do the sacrifices and to be stubborn and to learn the structure. And to do
Mhm.
that, you got to go, 500 times to the same spot.
Yeah.
At least, to master a structure, specific structure. And never
Mhm.
mind what we talked about the casting, the distance of the casting. If you're not good casting the same way all night, even when you're tired,
Uh,
find that range. It's not, at some
that's
at some point you're not on the same structure anymore. You're not going to be able to anticipate the drops, and you're going to fail.
that's something that a lot of surf anglers don't do well if they don't have a consistent cast because they can be in a zone or they're swinging it in or they're bringing it in. And so
Yeah,
they don't
bring
have to
it
be as
in. Oh,
precision.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
It
But
really
it's
is
the concept
amazing.
on a surf too. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Say that again. Sorry, I cut you
But it's
off.
the same concept on a surf too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing.
It is amazing to me, and I'm just going to say this one more time, Toby. We don't need to stick on this, but it is amazing how much I'm thinking about fly fishing. It's amazing how similar this is in
Yeah.
particular to what
It
I
is.
do with the fly rod. I mean, it's
Yeah.
way more similar to what I do with the fly rod than what I do with the surf rod in most nights. So
No, that's why I had this as Joe was describing it there, like this vision of if you could somehow conceive a way to fish a fly in the middle of the canal, 50 feet down, 5 knot current, how would you do it? Exactly what you're describing.
exactly.
One thing that helped me a lot understand is so as you guys know, I'm Portuguese from the islands, island that is called Saint Michael from the Azores.
Okay.
And as a little kid, there you do two things. You play soccer, and you dive and spearfishing. So since you're like 5, 6, 7 years old, it's one of the things that I did. So I had an older brother that goes spearfishing. I will go there with my mask and tube and just go on those corals, whatever, and check what's going on underneath. And that, believe it or not, give me a lot of data and info because you see how those predatory fish behave, where they hold. This is surf. I was a lot of years just under the water, just seeing habitat. And it helped me a lot when I came, into striped bass fishing, envision, what's going on down there? Well, what's happening? Where those fish are? Well, how they behave? And, it helped me definitely a lot. I will say that because I'm able to see it because I've been there, even though you know what I'm saying? So it's almost like it's on my brain somehow. I think,
Mhm.
I think that influences a little bit. I think, I'm not sure though.
So that raises an interesting kind of off topic a little bit, but do you? This is something I love to ask all kinds of surfcasters, and I've asked everybody from Anderson and Wetzel to Cantelmo and Troxler. And do you think that there is a sort of a fishing sixth sense, something that you develop so that you know when it's going to be good or you know how to react. It's a lot less. It's more of an instinct. Is that something you believe in? Because I think that's what you were kind of just
Oh,
saying.
I believe, but I also think, scientifically speaking, the instinct comes from past experiences and association with certain things that happened to you in the past. Sometimes you don't know what it is, but trust me, so I'm a guy always looking for the edge of something. When I talk to people, I have this feeling. So every time you have the feeling, it's almost like a deja vu that you have. That's some experience to you on the past.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, you have to follow those instincts because something tells you those conditions, whatever, there was same wind, the same tide, the same breeze, the same smell, the same everything is happening again, and your brain triggers you to that instinct that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But yes. But I think it's data in your brain, definitely.
I think so too. So what about time of year for jigging at night? Do you, without getting into any specifics about even the month, we don't even have to do that, but do you like spring, summer, fall, all of it? Do you have a preference? Is there a favorite time, or you're just out there hammering it?
No, there's no favorite time. You can go from spring all the way to late fall.
Hmm.
Uh,
Now,
the,
do
the,
you?
the fish gonna hold. That's it. It's a pretty simple concept. The fish is holding. Sometimes they're more active on the top, and they are. But remember something. When those fish are active on the top, they're chasing uh, they're chasing bait. So when you have bait, you have big bass holding on strike, on a surf, on anywhere, Cape Cod Canal, inlets, anywhere. That's it. Yeah, that's pretty simple if you think about it. It's
Mhm.
all about structure.
So you push it pretty late into the fall, even. I mean, I remember when I
Oh,
was with the fishermen. I think it was Canal Bait and Tackle used to always mention, towards the end of the season, their reports, they'd, throw the reminder, the heaviest fish we ever weighed in, which was like 69 and change, was caught in like November in the canal.
yes.
Like, so you'll keep right on through, right to the end of the season, hunting those big trophy bass in the
I'll be
canal.
very honest with you. Those big trophy bass, I never was fortunate to get anything big in November. You can get a lot of fish there, though.
Hmm.
Not just there, anyway, on the beaches too. But in November, I never was fortunate enough. But yes, yeah, there's people that catch them.
Yeah.
They're there for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's so late. I mean, most guys by
Yeah.
November 1, they've been done for a couple of weeks or a week anyways.
Yeah,
So,
October is very productive, extremely productive there.
Hmm.
But the problem is, I let you know what the problem is with October and catching trophy fish is there's so many bass moving, so many schoolies. And it's so hard, I mean, there's nights you with a bucktail, and again, I prefer slow nights because I'm targeting that structure. I don't. So sometimes those schoolies they made in, and it's one after the other, 10 pounds, whatever. But then
yeah.
I'm getting tired, and it's like, wow, let me take a break. Let me see if this school moves, and
Hmm.
uh, and let me go back to work.
Yeah, because you're dragging 12-pound fish 100 yards from 40 feet
It's
down.
brutal.
Yeah, it's brutal. That's got to be
Yeah.
brutal over and over.
No, thank you.
Yeah, that's tough. That's
Doesn't
definitely
matter how
tough.
young you are, you still, you're gonna feel it. Your back's gonna feel it. Your
Yeah.
shoulders, everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it makes
that's,
me sore just thinking of it right now.
yeah, for real,
Oh, I
for
cannot
real.
do it anymore. Trust me. Like I said, I pick my times now, my tides. Some for fun, and
Mhm.
again, I separate. But okay, I'm gonna meet a couple friends. I have a lot of people that I like. Always invite me, Joe. Let's go fish. So I do it usually at daytime. So because there's no spots involved, this and that. Let's have fun between friends. Go there, but then I take some other trips that I go more than stealth mode, and to
Mhm.
Yeah.
try to get some trophy fish.
So, Toby, I think we should transition to the next topic here, even though I'm totally in rapture here, and we're going to have him come back and talk for a bunch more because I have so many questions. But we definitely want to ask him about his lures. I mean, that's
Yeah.
probably actually what most people have, or excuse me, where most people have heard his name, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's obviously those of us that know Joe from the fish you've caught, the Go Tight Days, etc. But I mean, the following you have now on your lures is not it's crazy,
It's
but
crazy.
it's warranted. I mean,
That's right.
they're between the effectiveness, just to see some of them. I mean, I remember a while back you gave me one of your protos, one of your the bunker. plugs that you were
Oh yeah,
making,
yeah, huge bunker.
and the attention to detail just like blew my mind. I mean, the scale work, the gills, the whole thing. But I want to kind of quickly touch like where you started. Like, where'd you get started on the plug building? Maybe the first plug you made. Is there like some story behind that? Because I've never really. I know we've never had a chance to talk about it together, but I've never really heard much of the history of where you
Yeah.
how you got into plug building and
No.
got to the level that you're at now.
Yeah, yeah. Before I go through the story, it's funny that you mentioned about a lot of people knows me as a builder, some knows me as an angler. So back in the days, when I start building, people will say, "Do you build?" So everybody knew me as a fisherman, as an angler. Now it's the other way because
Yeah.
the new generation, they don't know what happened on the 2000, and they say, "Wow, you also catch big fish." So I didn't know that. So it's so funny, that the separation between generations. But yeah, so I was a carpenter as well, and also as a fisherman. And you see a lot of things, a lot of builders. I used to like a lot, after hours, GRS, like everybody. I have even though I'm a huge fan of Gibbs and everything behind me over here is Gibbs. Yeah, he's my idol. I admire every single thing he is. He's the GOAT.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about being a carver, innovator, a fisherman, he's complete. He's a complete package.
That's
That's why I
true.
have so much admiration to Gibbs. With that said, when you admire someone's work, you don't copy him.
Mm-hmm.
And I will never dare to copy anything from Gibbs. And that's why I choose a different path, because my admiration for him was too much. So with that said, I started looking at baits. I want a little bit of advantage, how I can do that. So I knew I have skills because of my work. And I said, okay, how am I going to take advantage of that? So I want to do long distance lure. How I going to do it? That's when I create the first long distance lure, which was a bazooka that swims, only belly weighted. I can actually show you one. It's one of those over here. This is actually the first lure ever. This is you could use as a needle. You can actually probably see the weights, all belly weighted flat. This is just a swimmer, long distance. You can use it as a needle. There's no tail weight now. You just belly weighted.
Yeah.
That's the first lure I ever created.
It's super long and narrow, except for
Yes.
it's got a big chunky body, almost like it's almost shaped a little bit like a spoon, but pointed. I'm just
Yeah.
describing for those
A
listening.
pregnant a pregnant
Almost like
needlefish.
it's almost like a needlefish.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's like a cross between the needlefish and a
Yeah.
pencil popper, but much
And
closer to a needle.
all belly weighted, you cast long, you swim it on the top flat surface, or you let it dive, and that was really the first fishing lure I did. And then, then I started getting addicted to baits and carving. I said, okay, I want to do a mackerel, I want to do a pogie, I want to do whatever bait is out there. I want to duplicate that. I want to have the advantage because I believe in match the hatch a lot, especially when you're talking about. I'm not talking about the beautiful paint work, and yeah, best don't see that, but they definitely see patterns and size
Mm-hmm.
and shape. Let's put it this way, especially if you're swimming, babe. I'm talking about swimming, not most like for the surf. And I believe Bass sees that, and I start doing, let me do a mackerel, let me do a bigger mackerel, let me do a pogie, let me do a smaller pogie. I start doing all the baits. That I could think of to fish them, and when those baits were present where I was fishing. And
Is there one of your style that this is an impossible question, so I don't expect you to maybe be able to answer it, but is there one of your style that you have now where you're like, this is really my baby, this is my favorite, like this one I feel like is my absolute, like I nailed it, this is my favorite one? Do you have one of those?
oh God, I have quite a few. I have actually a bunch of lures over here, but I show you it's between two.
We'll be totally fine if you show us more than one.
Yeah, maybe two. This is the Kavala.
Mm.
So, and
Nice.
why I think this bait, I really love it. It's so this bait has quite a few trophy fish on it. So it's hard to me to not like that bait. But if I'm gonna go into surf or Cape Cod Canal, the OMG, Ellipto OMG floating.
Mm.
this one also a lot of trophy fish on it. So that's really my two favorite. I mean, I love my 3Ts. I love everything that I do. Really, I'm biased, but I really like what I do because I do that with so much passion and so much dedication. I do it because of love. You got to remember, I stayed 10 years doing lures without selling a single lure.
So it should
So,
be. That's
who does that? I'm not saying now I'm not doing profit. I'm doing profit right now, but I'm selling some. But I stayed 10 years without selling because I wanted to develop. And I remember people telling me, Joe, why you don't sell lures? I said, if I sell them, I'm not going to create. I'm not going to develop. I'm going to be stuck doing something just to sell, and I'm not going to have time to create and develop and
that's
do what I
beautiful.
love.
Hmm.
That's
And that's
beautiful.
why I never sold it. And start creating all the shapes, different size pogies, small, big, any kind of baits, start
Hmm.
all
It
and
does feel like these days most people start to build with the immediate intent to sell. They don't
yes,
build to right? Do you
Hmm.
feel that way?
well, definitely
Yeah.
it is that. I'm not saying everybody, but
It seems
and
most they
Too
build
many.
immediately with the idea of selling, not because they're trying to solve a
Yeah.
problem or they're passionate. It's like they turn that first piece of wood with like I'm going to sell this.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
not for the long.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It's not
They
for the
beautiful.
bought
long.
the lid. They bought the lathe in the first place to sell lures, not to create something, not to
Yes,
develop
exactly.
something. Yeah.
With that said, it's very hard to create something today because we have lures that goes back well over 100 years, and
Hmm.
it's hard to create a new concept, a new thing. It's hard, but I think everybody should have their own signature. Uh, with that said, there's nothing wrong to you to go back and do a Adam or do a Gibbs or do that to you as a fisherman. Yeah, it's all good. But my only problem is when people want to take credit. For something that it's been around for God knows how many decades.
Yeah, that's
I do
totally
have a
right.
problem with I do have a problem. I do have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, understandably, I have a problem with it too. I don't even build, and when I see somebody pulling that, it irks me.
Yeah, for
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
So,
But it is what it is. Freedom.
Yeah.
I'm also a huge believer on our First Amendment on everything. So let people do and let the market decide who's who. That's the way.
yeah, that's right.
Uh,
So,
so,
so you've got a few favorites, but what if you had to choose just one of your own plugs to use for the rest of your life? Which one would it be? If you had to, gun to your head, you got to choose
okay. If I,
one.
if, if I have to choose one, it will be Cape Cod Canal. I will do the Cavala.
Okay.
And was to be on a surf, I have to pick two. It will be the OMG, which is the lipped mackerel. It
Nice.
doesn't necessarily be with a Mac pattern, but that style of body.
Yeah.
So another question I have about your lures is they're so unbelievably beautifully detailed. I mean, they are art. I mean, I've heard
Hmm.
many people say that they are truly art. How in the hell long does it take you to do one? Like how like it must take you forever, right? Like when you're doing the patterning, your actual finishing I'm talking about, not the
Mhm.
carving. How long does that take you?
Not long. But the thing is, how long me took me to be that good, it's a lot of work, I used to practice. I used to take, I remember when I started airbrushing, and a lot of people, they go straight to painting. And then what happens is they create bad habits.
Oh,
Hmm.
And they, with the trigger, the pressure, a lot of mistakes. And they don't take the time to learn first the techniques before you create bad habits. So the first time I airbrushed back in the day, so I took a huge, paper sheets, and I will practice lines and dots and connect them, and pressure. So I train
amazing.
everything before I will develop any bad habits. So I took exercises online that you could do and practice and practice and practice and practice. That's what it
That's
is. How
amazing.
long, but a lot of people don't now willing to put again the work,
Yeah.
discipline. They want to go straight to the fame, if that makes sense, but then doesn't work. It doesn't go that way.
Well, it's just like jigging the canal at night
Yes,
versus running around chasing the fish during the day on the bay pods.
Yeah.
I'm hearing the same person talking about the same thing. Really,
Hmm.
right? I mean, it's that level of dedication to both of those things. That's
yeah, you have to.
amazing.
But with that said, that brings a lot of haters. People hate success.
Yeah.
People hate. It's very weird to me. It's like when I see someone successful, and or at least people perceive them successful on what they do. I admire that people. I want the best for that people. And today it's like I don't know what's going on. So people they prefer to take you instead of you trying to get on their level, they want to take you down to be at the same level. That's so to me that's very weird.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
It's very
So,
weird.
but I'm learning, I'm adapting. The older you get, the older you understand things, the older, the more you see how people. Before I used to be mad at someone because of that. Today I'm not anymore. I feel sorry because I say, okay, I just sorry for you. I don't tell them though, but it's for that
Yeah.
feeling.
So
Right?
that being said, where can people find out more about your lures? What's going on?
Well, they can my social media or Instagram or even my website, www.paivalures.com. My social media, Instagram at Paivalures. You guys will find me. I also have a private group on Facebook, Paivalures. Yeah, more than welcome to join in.
And we'll make sure that all that's in the show notes too. We'll
Yeah,
definitely
we'll
make
let
sure we link
everybody
all
know,
that so
yeah.
people can find that.
Just
Okay.
if you go to the Facebook group, don't get in my way when I want to get a couple of Joe's spots.
That's right. That's right.
Defer your spot to me, please.
That's right. That's right. We'll make sure that all that information is in the show notes. Joe, this has been outrageous. It's been so fun and so great, so knowledgeable. We thank you so much for your time. You're definitely coming back. We're going to force you.
Yes.
You definitely have to come back. We have so much more to talk about. So I'm going to say thank you, and I'll throw it over to Toby.
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait to have you back on, Joe, because some of the things you were saying were making me think and come up with more questions. But I knew we had a time limit here, so I didn't jump into them yet. But yeah, you've been great. I really appreciate that you were able to take the time with us today, and it's been a learning experience for me. Hopefully, everyone out there listening as well picked up on a couple of things for not just the canal, but there's stuff I think you were talking about there that. I mean, I'm rethinking and working on how I'm going to apply that to some of my open surf spots. So thank you for that.
No, thank you guys for having me, Gary and Toby. Toby and I, as we mentioned in the beginning, we go a long way, and like I said, I don't hate. The thing is, when people are better than me, when people that can do, push me to another level. I love, I respect, and that's why I did this when you reached me and say, "Hey, Joe, you want to do this?" I said right away because it was you, and I got invited to other stuff and I actually never did it. The only thing I ever done was with Dave Anderson,
Mhm.
a couple interviews, and you, and that's it. Because that's the respect I have, for you guys, and thank you, definitely thank you for having me.
Yeah,
It was
well,
a
the
pleasure.
respect we have for you is extreme. And I said,
Yes.
you've been stuck in my head for 4 years, and I'm so happy that I have a podcast now where I have an excuse to talk to you. So we thank you so very, very much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Oh, thank you. And one more thing before I go.
Yeah.
So this is an invitation. If you guys want to ever come my way and experience that on a stealth trip, we can try to figure something, and maybe we go Mountain Mojo, old way. I call Mike, and the four of us, we can maybe go there and fun and experience a little bit of what we do.
Well, that'd be great. I'm in.
Yeah.
So,
More than
Sounds
welcome.
like a plan.
yeah, sounds like a plan. So, this has been a weekly edition of the Surfcast Podcast. You can find out more about the podcast at surfcastpodcast.com, or definitely check us out on social media, Facebook, Instagram, at the Surfcast Podcast.